Hello, this is Al Jazeera live from Doha. I'm Sahil Rahman. On the programme, a split in the ranks. Muslim rebels are divided as they head back into negotiations with the Philippines government. Put him on trial now. Italian prosecutors call for immediate action against Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi.
And I'm Nazanin Moshiri reporting on the failure of the new Tunisian interim government to release all political prisoners.
Welcome. Mass protests are entering their 17th day in Egypt. Anti-government demonstrators are getting an unofficial boost from the country's unions. Thousands of workers are expected to strike for a second day as they call for pay rises and government reforms. Emeke Emulu has the latest.
Gamal, tell your father the Egyptian people don't like him. Words from a young protester who's helping to keep spirits up among anti-Mubarak crowds in Alexandria. Such scenes are now repeated daily in Egypt's second largest city. Like demonstrators in Cairo, these crowds are holding their ground. On Wednesday, their cause got an added boost. The Egyptian telecommunications building in downtown Cairo. About 200 workers demanding better pay and benefits. Thousands more across Egypt were holding similar strikes. Some say it's also in solidarity with those who want President Mubarak out.
Al-Mahal Al-Kubra is considered to be a pivotal city for a change in Egypt. Our company is suffering losses, and it is also manipulated by a group of corrupt management. Meanwhile, we also support our fellow demonstrators in Tahrir Square for the change of the regime.
3 independent trade unions joined the day of mass action, also disrupting services in Suez and Port Said. This is a new dimension to the uprising. To lead a union in Egypt, you generally need government approval. The fact that these bodies now appear to be mobilizing against the state doesn't bode well. Right now, neither side in the crisis is wavering. Earlier on Wednesday, a group of prominent figures who call themselves the Wise Men met with Vice President Omar Suleiman to discuss a possible transfer of power, and like others before, didn't get very far.
The official position, be it from the Vice President or the Prime Minister's position, is that the President is going to remain in office until September and that he continues to practice his authorities and that he is responsible for putting Egypt on democratic transition.
Not what people living in tent cities in Cairo and Alexandria want to hear. Emeke Emulu, Al Jazeera.
Well, the protests are now spilling out of Liberation Square and spreading to other parts of Cairo. Hundreds of pro-democracy demonstrators are camped outside Parliament. It's a sign the protests are entering a new phase, with people taking their message for Mubarak to go straight to the politicians. Gatherings outside parliamentary buildings are usually banned, but in a surprise move, the army is allowing people access. Elsewhere in the country, 4 protesters have died and about 100 people wounded in clashes with police. In the western province of New Valley, anti-Mubarak demonstrations started on Monday night. Several people are injured or were injured and taken to hospital. Reports say they were first serious clashes in the province since the 28th of January, when a day of rage was observed. The cabinet formed by President Mubarak in response to the protests is coming under pressure. The newly appointed culture minister, Gaba Ashfor, has quit. His family say it's due to health reasons, but Egypt's main daily newspaper, Al Haram, says Ashfor, who is also a writer, was criticised by his literary colleagues for taking the post. Ashfor was the only face in the new cabinet. Now, the US is warning Mubarak's government not to wait out the protests, but to make reforms the people are calling for. On Wednesday, President Obama spoke to Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah about the crisis. Obama stressed the importance of taking immediate steps towards an orderly transition. From Washington, our White House correspondent Patty Culhane has more.
On the streets of Egypt, the protesters make their point with their presence. In Washington, D.C., the message is being sent from this podium, a list of demands.
Lifting the emergency law. One of them is our constitutional changes so that we get toward free and fair elections. But I think it's obvious that They've yet to meet the threshold.
The response from Egypt sent through the American media. The U.S. can't tell Egypt what to do.
How can you ask me to disband that emergency law while I'm in difficulty? Give me time, allow me to have control, to stabilize the nation, to stabilize the state, and then we would look into the issue.
The Egyptian foreign minister raising the possibility of the military taking over. To that, the Obama administration responded that aid could be on the line.
We will evaluate their responses to and their level of restraint will be evaluated as we make decisions on our aid.
The Obama administration is also reportedly facing pressure by Israel to stop pushing for Mubarak's departure. At the White House Wednesday, Defense Minister Ehud Barak in high-level meetings on Egypt. WikiLeaks cables show who they want to be in charge. The U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv saying in 2008 that when Mubarak steps down, quote, there is no question that Israel is most comfortable with the prospect of Omar Suleiman. In another cable, a U.S. diplomat writes, quote, Suleiman told us Egypt wants Gaza to go hungry, but not starve. Saying, quote, in their moments of greatest frustration, Tantawi and Suleiman each have claimed that the IDF would be welcome to reinvade Philadelphia if the IDF thought that would stop the smuggling. The new Egyptian vice president, up until Wednesday, the Obama administration's very public choice to lead the orderly transition, now beginning to temper their public praise. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, some news just coming in from Pakistan. There's been a blast inside a military base in Murdan region of northwest Pakistan. Unconfirmed reports suggest 10 people have been killed in the explosion, which witnesses say was near a school. We'll bring you more on that as soon as we get it. Moving on now to talks between North and South Korean military personnel. Well, they've broken down. Neither side could agree on the agenda for future discussions. Tensions have been high on the peninsula since the North shelled a South Korean island in November, killing 4 people. Well, our correspondent Harry Fawcett has been following events and joins me now from Seoul. Many reasons given, Harry, for why these talks failed from both sides of the border. But what's your understanding of the new statements that are coming out of North Korea?
Well, the statement on the face of it is pretty conclusive. It says, our military and people do not feel the need to meet the traitors group. I'm told the nuance of that is really wants nothing to do with South Korea at the moment, as long as they, the traitors group or South Korea, don't want improved North-South ties and refuse dialogue. Now, I think even after such a statement, it's a little bit early to call time and say that this latest chapter of the negotiations is entirely dead, if nothing else because North Korea has shown very recently that it's willing to change its mind on a dime, really. In December, it had very belligerent public dialogue with North Korea, even raising the specter of nuclear war. And then from the beginning of January onwards, it completely reversed that position. And there was really a clamor coming from north of the border for these talks. Certainly, the South Koreans aren't ruling out further talks. They say the door to further conversation is open if the North agrees to the agenda and the level of representation for higher level military talks. And that is the key point of conflict here. The South wants that agenda to be completely concerned with 2 incidents last year, the sinking of the Cheonan with 46 lives lost, the South Korean military vessel, and then the shelling of Yeonpyeong Island with the loss of 4 people, 2 of them civilians. The South really wants at least some public acknowledgement of responsibility, if not an apology from the North. The North apparently saying that it would only discuss those issues as part of a much broader conversation about military tensions on this peninsula. And so both sides going into these talks knew exactly what the position of the other one was. And so it wasn't really a surprise that they couldn't reach agreement. Each really needs some sort of victory in these talks for their own domestic political audience. The South needs some sort of acknowledgement from the North. The North doesn't want to reverse its position of having nothing to do with the Cheonan sinking. And so really it's hard to see how either side can get the necessary victory it needs from these talks in order to progress towards high-level military talks, let alone towards a resumption of 6-party talks with other countries about denuclearization north of the border.
Well, for the moment there, thanks, Harry, for bringing us up to speed. The trial of Abu Bakr Bashir, spiritual leader of al-Qaeda-linked Jamaat Islamiyah network, has been postponed until Monday. Bashir was due in court on Thursday to face terrorism charges. The 72-year-old has already served time for conspiracy over the 2002 Bali bombings. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. Now, Thailand and Cambodia will present their arguments over a border dispute to the United Nations next week. Both countries blame each other for damage to an ancient Hindu temple located at the centre of recent military clashes. At least 11 people have died in the fighting and thousands have fled their homes. The Philippines government has resumed peace talks with Muslim separatists in the country's south. A spokesman for the Moro Islamic Liberation Front says he's optimistic about negotiating an end to decades-long conflict. But as Margaret Ortigas reports, there's dissension within the MILF itself.
Ligawasan Marsh, a resource-rich battlefield. Long an enclave of the separatist Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, it was once difficult to get in without the group's say-so. But not anymore.
1,000 fighters in this one camp used to be affiliated with the MILF. Over the past couple of years, they have jumped ship and joined forces with the Moro National Liberation Front. They say more and more of them are doing so, growing frustrated and disheartened with the MILF leadership.
For these fighters, it's a return to the mother group. The MILF broke away from the Philippines' original Muslim separatist movement, the MNLF, back in the 70s, when a peace deal was first struck with the government. But the MILF's pursuit of its own peace deal has not been as successful. Despite its leader's statements to the contrary, many of the ground troops grew restless.
They say too much, but accomplish nothing.
Now able to visit Ligawasan, the MNLF chairman is welcomed warmly in this former MILF camp. Even if many consider the original peace deal he brokered a failure, he is still seen here as a hero.
I am euphoric about this because I think this is a sign, a signal from the Almighty God that now our people have finally learned a big lesson, namely that only when they are united that they can be free.
Another camp where MILF fighters have turned, believing the group's leaders to be ineffective and detached. Misuwari says that